All right, I think we are ready to get started. Okay, so let me introduce myself. My name is Marissa Espino. I am a Public Outreach Section Manager here at the Orange County Transportation Authority. Thank you all for joining us this evening and sharing your thoughts on how to improve Orange County's transportation system in the future. Tonight, we want to get your feedback about the 2026 Long Range Transportation Plan, or LRTP for short, and help OCTA establish a transportation vision for Orange County looking out to the year 2050. We appreciate your time and look forward to hearing from you tonight. Next slide, please. The webinar is also being presented in Spanish and Vietnamese via Zoom. Please click on the interpretation icon located at the bottom of the screen and select your language of choice. That's English, Spanish, or Vietnamese. To hear Spanish or Vietnamese only, click the Mute Original Audio option. Our interpreters are already in their rooms, so please feel free to hop over now. Next slide, please. So today's meeting is being recorded and will be posted online for others to view at their convenience. Attendees' cameras will be off and microphones are muted, but there will be opportunities to ask questions or make comments during the webinar. Questions can be submitted throughout the presentation using the Q&A button, and the team will respond to questions during the Q&A session. To use closed captioning, select the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can also use the raise hand function if you prefer to ask a question verbally. Next slide, please. If you select the raise hand function, we will call your name and you can unmute yourself to speak. If you submit a question via the Q&A function, we'll also ask the question for you. If you're dialing in with your phone, please press *9 to get in the queue to ask a question. You will be announced by the last 4 digits of your phone number, and then you will press *6 to unmute yourself. Next slide, please. Okay, so before we get started with the PowerPoint presentation, we'd like to share a brief video that explains what an LRTP is and its purpose. Let's go ahead and start that video.
The Orange County Transportation Authority develops transportation solutions to enhance quality of life and keep Orange County moving. Directions 2050 is OCTA's Long Range Transportation Plan, or LRTP. The LRTP is Orange County's long-range transportation blueprint for the next 25 years. Every 4 years, OCTA updates the LRTP to keep pace with the constantly changing needs and growth of our dynamic county. Looking ahead, Orange County will face challenges on multiple fronts. As remote work, e-commerce, lifestyle shifts, and technology continue to reshape how people travel, it's essential that we build a transportation system that's flexible and ready to adapt to our community's changing needs. The physical constraints of the urban fabric limit our ability to expand roadways and infrastructure. Growing travel demand, combined with aging infrastructure and climate-related risks, like extreme heat, wildfires, and drought, will stress the resilience of our urban systems. OCTA also faces an evolving funding landscape shaped by rising costs and uncertainty around state and federal priorities. The high cost of transportation and gaps in transit coverage in some areas can create barriers to jobs and essential services for those who don't drive. That is why it's imperative that we work together to solve these challenges, shape our future, and build an Orange County that will serve everyone's needs. OCTA's long-range transportation plan is shaped by current policies, expert analysis, and most importantly, your input, along with the voices of local leaders and transportation experts. Planning for 2050 means including your voice. Directions 2050 will identify emerging transportation challenges, use your input to guide strategies and initiatives, and set a clear transportation vision for 2050. Get involved by taking our short survey. It only takes a few minutes and your feedback makes a big difference. Take the online survey by November 9th for a chance to win a $50 gift card. We'll also be hosting an upcoming community meeting on Wednesday, October 8th. You'll find all this and more at octa.net/LRTP. Together, we can create a transportation system that's safe, efficient, and resilient.
All right, hopefully that gave you a glimpse of what we're talking about today. I'm now going to hand it over to LRTP Project Manager, Kristen So, who will offer further detail about the LRTP. Kristen?
Thank you, Marissa. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Kristen So, Principal Analyst with the Planning Division here at OCTA. I'll begin by briefly explaining the purpose of the Long Range Transportation Plan, or the LRTP, and its development process. The LRTP is a comprehensive plan that defines the long-term vision for Orange County's transportation system. The process typically includes assessing OCTA's current project and program commitments, evaluate any future mobility needs, and modify priorities or identify any new initiatives as necessary. We update the LRTP every 4 years to provide Orange County's official input into Southern California Association of Governments, or SCAG's, Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategies, also known as the RTP-SCS. It's important that our projects are included in the RTP-SCS to be eligible for state and federal funding, which is programmed through the Federal Transportation Improvement Program, or FTIP. The plan typically looks out to a minimum of 20 years in the future. For this cycle, we'll be planning through the year 2050. Next slide, please. The LRTP builds on a variety of key inputs, including demographic and financial forecasts, OCTA's current commitments and core operations, public and stakeholder input, and key challenges and emerging transportation trends. All of this informs the LRTP's core outputs, which include the plan's long-term goals, a list of preferred projects, a performance evaluation of these projects and how they achieve the goals, and a short-term action plan that captures near-term initiatives needed to support the LRTP. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, a substantial portion of the LRTP includes the delivery of OCTA's current commitments and core operations. OCTA's core operations at present include delivery of Measure M2 programs and projects and providing safe and reliable transit services. Measure M2 is a voter-approved half-cent sales tax that is used to fund a defined set of transportation projects and programs, including freeway and local street improvements, signal synchronization, transit improvements, and environmental mitigation and cleanup programs. As Orange County's primary transit operator, OCTA services approximately 60 bus routes, access paratransit, as well as rideshare and van pool programs. In addition, OCTA leads effort on advancing active transportation in Orange County through bikeway planning and safety education programs. Next slide, please. As we begin developing the plan, it's essential to recognize how Orange County's needs and priorities are shifting over time. The first step is to look at travel demand projections, which are largely driven by demographic trends. Orange County's population is expected to peak around year 2040, then gradually decline, resulting in a modest net increase of 3% between the year 2024 and 2050. In contrast, employment is projected to grow by 10% over the same period, which means we'll continue to see workers commuting into Orange County from neighboring counties. Meanwhile, housing is projected to grow by 13% over the same period, which is driven by housing mandates aimed at addressing the longstanding housing shortages and change in household size. Next, Marissa will facilitate our first poll question.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Okay, so yes, we have 3 poll questions total, and this is our first one. It should pop up here in just a moment so that you can pick your answers. But the question is, what will impact your daily travel the most in the next 20 plus years? And you're selecting your top 3. More traffic congestion is A. B is higher transportation costs. C, pedestrian and bicyclist safety. D, difficulty getting around without a personal car. E, aging roads and sidewalks. F, extreme weather or climate-related disruptions. G, new technologies like telecommuting, driverless vehicles, e-bikes, or none of the above. There's also an other option if you have something that you think that is not included here that you want to include, you can put it in the Q&A and share with the group as well. Thank you. And you're selecting your top 3.
Okay, we're just about 50% participation.
Thank you.
All right, just give it 10 more seconds. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and close the poll.
And then we should be able to see the answers live here in just a moment. Okay, it looks like our top three are, so as far as impacts go, more traffic congestion, difficulty getting around without a personal car. And then we have a kind of close here with B and C. So pedestrian and bicyclist safety and higher transportation costs. So thank you for that information. This kind of gives us an idea of how this group is thinking. So thank you. Kristen, I'm going to hand it over to you, and then we'll do a couple more poll questions after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa. All right, so here are 5 key challenges that we anticipate to influence Orange County's future transportation needs. Shifting mobility trends continue to influence how we plan. The rise of remote work, growing e-commerce, and the available new technologies such as e-bike and electric vehicles are changing when and how people are traveling. And traditional peak commuting periods are blurring, largely due to flexible and hybrid work schedule. These trends add to the complexities of predicting future needs. Next, our county has a mostly built-out roadway system. Locally, travel demands continue to increase due to job and housing growth. However, roadway expansion is becoming less feasible and desirable due to limited space, high costs, and environmental impacts, which means we need to make better use of the existing space that we have. We're also anticipating increasing risks to system resiliency. Extreme weather events such as heat waves, wildfires, and flooding are becoming more frequent. Our transportation system will need to be more resilient to minimize disruptions for the travelers in the future. Meanwhile, we need to continue to work on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Next, we're facing an evolving funding landscape that is becoming ever more complex. Construction costs are rising, and state and federal funding rules are constantly shifting. Locally, Measure M2, the half-cent transportation sales tax, will sunset in year 2041. Replacing that funding will be critical to maintaining current services and programs that are supported by M2. Finally, maintaining access to economic opportunities remains a challenge. Reliable transportation access is essential for supporting jobs, education, and quality of life. This is especially important for people who rely on walking, biking, transit, or other ride-sharing options. Next slide, please. So to address the key challenges that we just discussed, we have drafted 4 goals to guide the development of this LRTP. The first goal is to expand multimodal capacity. This means providing a better balance between improvements for personal vehicles versus investments in transit, biking, and walking. The goal is to move more people, not just cars, by making smarter use of our space that we already have. The next goal is to improve operations by making the system more efficient and reliable, so we have fewer delays, safer roads, and better coordination between different travel modes. The third goal is to enhance accessibility by providing affordable and convenient travel options to improve access to jobs, schools, and other key destinations. This goal focuses on reducing barriers for transit-dependent populations. Finally, strengthen system resiliency to make sure that the transportation system remains sustainable and resistant to future extreme weather events or any potential financial shifts. We'll continue to refine these goals as we engage with you guys and our stakeholders and advance our technical analysis. With that, I'll hand it back to Marissa.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Okay, yes, we want to ask a couple more questions. The next one, this is now about improvements. So which improvements would be most helpful in expanding your travel options? You would select 2 here. A, more bus routes, B, more bike lanes, C, more sidewalks and pedestrian crossings, D, expanded light rail network, E, shuttles to and from transit stations, F, on-demand local shuttles, or G, a mobile app that integrates trip planning and payments. So you're picking your top 2 improvements. And I see people are putting questions and comments in the Q&A. That's great. Keep those coming.
Okay, we were just about 60%. We'll give it a few more seconds. Okay, we're at the minute. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll.
Okay, so let's look at what we have here. Close to a tie here for number one. So expanded light rail network at 53%. That's okay, very interesting. And then more bus routes, 51%. Let's see what else we have here. And a close, third at 38, more bike lanes. So those were kind of the top answers here tonight. All right, thank you very much. Let's move on to our final poll question, and then we'll get into Q&A. What destinations should be prioritized for better transit, walking, and biking access? The choices here are A, job centers and business parks, B, school, colleges, and universities, C, hospitals and clinics, D, senior or community centers, E, grocery, shopping, and entertainment areas, and then F, major transit hubs. So this is kind of where bus and train routes would connect. You're selecting your top two.
Okay, we just passed 50%.
Okay.
Let's just give it a few more seconds. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So it looks like our top two, but we really looks like we have a top three here. So at 54%, grocery, shopping, and entertainment areas was the top pick. At 52%, job centers and business parks. And then at 50%, major transit hubs. Okay, very good. Thank you for participating in those polls. We really appreciate it. Okay, so now we are entering into the question and answers segment, and certainly you can just share comments as well. As a reminder, you can use either the raise hand or Q&A functions if you would like to ask any questions or make comments. It does look like we might have one caller, so I will, as a reminder too, if you are dialing in with your phone, please press *9 to get in the queue to ask a question. Then you will press *6 to unmute yourself when called upon. And that starts now with the Q&A. So let's go ahead and start with our first question. Kristen, first question is, why is there an expected decline in population in 2040?
Okay. Before I answer the questions, I just want to mention that we have a couple of other folks on the panel today that I may pull in to help me answer your questions today. One would be Greg Nord, Department Manager for Regional and Active Transportation Planning, as well as Arthur Black, Principal Planner from LSA Associates, one of the professional partners assisting OCTA to prepare the cycle of the LRTP. All right, so now I go back to the question about population. So I'm not a demographer, but from my understanding in this area is that the slowing population growth in Orange County is not just in Orange County, it's much of California and the nation, but particularly for California, it is largely due to lower birth rates, aging populations, and outmigration. We're seeing some younger residents and families moving out of the county to seek more affordable housing.
Okay. Thank you, Kristen. Okay, we have a question from Brian. He asks, what would be needed in order to increase transit's share of funding? I believe that there is an exponential need for public transportation as time goes on.
I think I guess the answer for this question depending on where we're talking about the funding is coming from. So there's federal funding, there's state funding, and then there's our local M2 funding. As far as the M2 funding for transit share, I don't believe it is something that we can easily alter. I think it was a voter choice. I'm not sure, so this is something I have to, we may have to get back to you after the webinar. As far as in the framework of the LRTP, because we're looking out to the year 2050 and we're looking at funding through the year 2050, we cannot say for certain what the funding will be, the share will be in the year 2050. So for the LRTP, we're not selecting our projects based on the funding availability. We're looking at the projects that we need to achieve our goals, looking at the performance evaluation, and from there, then we can move forward to see what kind of fundings we need to fulfill our plan.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Let's see, I'm going to take one more written comment here and then I see a raised hand. Robert asked about how many participants we have tonight. Robert, we have about 60. Robert also had another question. He was just mentioning on poll number 3, and as a reminder, that was the question about what destinations should be prioritized for better transit, walking, and biking access. He was asking why we didn't include airport service. Kristen, I'll let you answer that, but isn't that because that's not part of our purview as far as OCTA's purview?
Correct. That is my understanding as well, that we don't normally involve airport planning. We're focused on the roadway within our county.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let's go ahead, and I see Emilio has his hand raised. Emilio, we're going to take you off mute if you want to ask your question.
Excellent. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I was wondering a little bit about the inner works of the long-range transportation plan that OCTA is developing and how it interacts with Measure M2. I've been to the Measure M2 community webinars, and it seems that they're mainly concerned about making sure that they feel like they're delivering on this measure, which is allocating 70% on personal vehicles, and frankly, it's that to me it seems like in the history it was, I don't know how it was initiated, but it fixes these percentages and even the projects themselves, which is I think a very high burden on a voter, not very flexible. So for the plan itself, how it relates to what you were saying earlier of like, how do you take account into funding, and could there be, say, another measure that can be put into the ballot initiated by OCTA or something like that to make sure that we have open or funding that's geared towards active transportation and that is adaptive to the needs of the community, rather than saying in 2001 we're going to expand the freeway 55 and commit to that promise 20 years later?
Yeah, thank you for your question. It's a question that I think even within OCTA we're always asking ourselves. As far as the M2 measure M2 and its nuances and rules, I don't want to speak out of turn because that's not my department, but I will say that all the projects in Measure M2 were defined and voter approved. So to change that, I believe will it's not easy. It's not a part of the LRTP scope to change what was already prescribed in Measure M2. That said, the current LRTP cycle, as I mentioned before, we update it every 4 years. The current LRTP cycle, we're actually at a very good position to kind of steer what kind of programming we may want to see in the year 2050. As I mentioned, the current M2 is going to expire in year 2041. So that leaves us 9 years of basically that funding, that normal, the typical revenue we expect from N2 will not have that in that last 9 years. So it falls on this RTP to kind of strategize what kind of projects and program we want to see in the year 2050 and the required resource or funding that we would need to include these projects. And from there, the LRTP will explore different, funding or finance alternatives to and see if there are certain pathway that's worth exploring further.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. All right, we're going to start with another comment and question, and this is from Aaron, asking, why are we dedicating nearly 75% of our funding and almost all of our transportation space to personal vehicles when they serve a shrinking portion of our community's needs? How can we start building a balanced transportation system that makes walking, biking, and transit safe and viable options for everyone? I can repeat that too I know it was a mouthful.
No, I think I understood. It's kind of related to the previous two questions that we have. I believe this, I'm not really sure where the 75% number is coming from. I'm assuming that is referring to the Measure M2, because that's not the right percentage, I believe, for our typical annual budget. I believe for our budget, we are dedicating almost 50% to transit. So, but as far as I'm gonna sound repetitive now, for our 2050 plan, we're not tied to a certain percentage of funding on transit or roadways. It's going to basically, the process is, as you saw in the previous slide, with input and output, we are looking at our needs and selecting a list of projects for our preferred plan in LRTP. And then from there, we'll determine the funding needs for this list of projects. So we're not doing it we're not looking at funding we have to assign projects. We're doing it the other way around for this LRTP.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Let's see, we have a rail related question. Oliver asked, is there a long range rail plan for OCTA, just like the one LA had in the 1950s? Okay. So what about that?
I'm not familiar with the one in LA in 1950s, but I will say that we actually do have a current project going on. It's called the Orange County Strategic Rail Plan. I believe it's ongoing and it's scheduled to be completed in early 2027. It's not, it's a short to midterm strategy to kind of integrate and enhance and expand all the passenger rail services in Orange County. So that includes looking at Metrolink SCORE program, the low sand corridor improvements, any high-speed rail initiatives. That all those will be incorporated in the plan, I believe.
Okay, thank you. It looks like we have a raised hand. Why don't we ask John to speak? We'll unmute you. John?
Yeah, hello. Yes, I have a question regarding more bike lanes for like Bosa and Westminster and Magnolia. I noticed that there were not many bike lanes because I ride on e-bike and sometimes it feels kind of dangerous because you know how there are cars parking on the bike lanes and Magnolia does not have any, and how am I gonna, question is, how I'm gonna drive around? Because I'll be moving to Westminster, so I'm gonna be living on Golden West and Westminster Boulevard Avenue. Sometime, what if I want to go to Little Saigon, you know, like Bosa Avenue, but there's no bike lanes. So am I gonna share the road with like a car who's driving 30, 40 miles per hour, but I'm only driving 50 miles per hour on the Bosa, and it's very, very dangerous. I don't know how are you guys going to do something about that?
Thanks for the question. I will say that projects like this, you know, in terms of adding a bike lane or modifying the roadway to include bike lane, that decision ultimately rests with the local jurisdictions that these roadways belong in. So in your case, in this case, it would be Westminster. However, as far as how it would be incorporated in the LRTP, we do have several countywide active transportation initiatives. So some of them include, there is, most recently, we've completed the OC Connect, which is doing a active transportation, a bike trail, I think in the Garden Grove, Anaheim area. And then we have Move OC, which is a comprehensive countywide plan for active transportation. That's going to start pretty soon. And then we have recently completed a bike gap closure feasibility studies. So a lot of these countywide efforts do identify existing deficiencies in terms of active transportation, connectivity, and just availability in general. And these studies are done in conjunction with all the cities. So if there are deficiencies on a certain city roadway, we try to incorporate it. That has a regional significance. We try to incorporate these feedbacks from the cities in our plans. So if those have been, you know, incorporated in these studies, they will get folded into our long-term transportation plan.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Kristen. This is more of a comment, but Kristen, I don't know if you want to elaborate on anything. For question 2, so they're referring to poll question 2, which was which improvements would be most helpful in expanding your travel options. They said along with more bike lanes that they believe incentivization of electric bikes is going to help a lot more for mobility in OC. Though they did not take a look at the trip length distribution for OC region, they're assuming majority of trips can be substituted with electric bikes. So just wanted to share that comment that was made. Let's see. So next question. Let's see. Brian has a question. Has OCTA explored any bus service improvements in the plan? Like bus priority traffic lights, bus only lanes, things like that?
Yeah, great question. So the way long range transportation, this LRTP works is that we take the recommendations from our recently completed studies and fold it into the plan. So in terms of bus strategies, you know, bus speed improvement strategies, there have been several studies and ongoing efforts on those fronts. So the 2024 OC Transit Vision that was just completed earlier this year, you know, they have some recommendations. And then we also have the ongoing, we have a few bus transit signal priority studies that are ongoing. And if the recommendations from those studies, if the timing works out, they'll also get folded into our plan. So yes, there are several, what I want to say is there are several efforts going on in terms of improving bus speed using these new technologies. And then I believe we also have, there's another study, I think it's the transit optimization study. We're looking at not just the technology, but also, you know, any kind of infrastructure improvements that could be done within the current right-of-way to help improve, to prioritize transit bus speed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Let's see, I'm going to share another comment, then I'll address another question. Tony mentioned, just going to echo what many here are saying, that I would love to see local funding shift away from car freeway to more active transportation funding like BRT, light rail, and bike lanes. He was thanking us for hosting this tonight. Let's see, next question. I would like to know in the future, is there a possibility to add the combined bus routes for both OCTA bus and the Riverside Transit Agency bus Commerlink between Irvine Amtrak Metrolink Station and perhaps Old Town Temecula and the Temecula Promenade Shopping Mall and Pechanga Resort Casino Hotel? So what about, yeah, is there coordination with other agencies outside of the county, Kristen?
Yes, so these are very specific route suggestions that I'm not personally familiar with, but I think we'll definitely, make sure this kind of feedback gets to the right department. But as far as cross-county transit, the LRTP does analyze cross-county travel patterns. And because we're a job-rich county, we recognize that many riders regularly cross the county lines to go to work or school or other engagements and vice versa. So we do coordinate very closely with our rail agency partners such as Metrolink and Losan, and we continue to invest in programs and improvements that enhances these type of connections to our these other regions. So the answer is, while I can't say specifically what we will do with the routes that you requested, but yes, there is a very active effort to try to incorporate these kind of cross-county coordination into our plan.
Thank you. So we have lots of questions here I'm fielding through. So a lot of Measure M questions too today, for sure. Let's go with a question from Sean. Can we use the personal vehicle Measure M funding to grade separate our railways? This would allow cars to drive and access freeways without having to be stopped at railroad crossings and would simultaneously improve our railways.
Yes, we do. We already, I believe, I can't tell you the number, the letter, but we do have a measure that's specifically dedicated to rail crossing separation, roadway separation. So yes. And I believe we already have majority of the projects completed. There's just a handful left the last time I looked at that list of rail separation projects.
Hey, another question. How feasible is it to reduce car lanes on our large 6-lane roads and turn 1 lane into bus lanes?
So I cannot say how feasible, because it really differs by location. It's a case by case thing that we have to look at. I will say that we already have we do have ongoing efforts with regard to that. Not necessarily bus lanes, but for example, we have a current project that's ongoing. It's called the Bikeways Connectivity Studies that's slated to be completed sometime next year. And its exact purpose is to identify any potential in current roadways that have the potential to be reduced in number of lanes to implement Class 4 separated bikeways. As far as separated bus lane goes, we also have other ongoing efforts. We are doing a series of studies on Harbor Boulevard to see if there are any potential opportunities to do bus route improvements. And one of the scenarios that we're studying is a dedicated bus lane. So yes, there have been some efforts on that front in terms of identifying any roadways that we can take the capacity from just general purpose vehicle into to be dedicated for transit or active transportation.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Let's see. I do see a hand up, but let me ask one more written question here, and then we'll go to that hand. Do individual cities and city councils need to start the planning on transit projects? So we just explain kind of our relationship with the cities.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Sure. Do individual cities and city councils need to start the planning on transit projects?
So there are different types of transit in the county, you know, aside from the OCTA operated services, you know, like our OC bus, our paratransit, and individual local jurisdictions may also have their, you know, their own transit, such as, you know, in Irvine, they have the Irvine Connect, in Anaheim, they have ART. But so without knowing exactly what the question was referring to, I'll just say that engaging with the cities, you know, with any of our planning is an important component for our outreach process. Particularly for the LRTP, the cities will have several opportunities to provide their inputs, including at the planning directors forum and at other, you know, there are other opportunities, and they can also always formally submit comments during the review of the RTP. In most cases, though, because RTP takes input from recently completed studies, those studies are already developed in coordination with the stakeholder cities, and with their own extensive public outreach. So local priorities, if they already have plans for certain projects, they should already be captured in these studies. And those would get voted into the RTP.
All right, thank you. Okay, here is another comment and question. This is from, oh, I'm sorry. Let me go to the raised hand. I did say I was going to do that. Let's do the first raised hand if we can unmute. It just says Zoom user. I don't have a name.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you for hosting this. I don't know if you
Yes.
can hear me. So my question is, with the right-of-way that cuts through Garden Grove for the streetcar of the old Pacific Electric, like I know for this long-range plan, you know, do we hope that there is a plan for this OC streetcar to use that right-of-way, or is that kind of right-of-way kind of not able to be used at this time? Because I know cities, you know, don't like having rail in their backyard and stuff. Because I think the OC streetcar can easily be expanded using that right of way all the way up to Cypress College. So I just want to say, you know, like if we're planning for 2050, I hope it could be at least, you know, expanded by then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will start to answer the question, but I may look for Greg to see if he has anything to add. As far as the PE right-of-way project, we do already have a project completed, or not a project, but a plan completed. It's a OC Connect. It's our phase 1 study that was completed earlier this year, and that study, I believe, looked at multimodal use for that right away. So I think we've already identified several alternatives for that to build over that right away. And I believe we're starting a next phase of this project. Greg, do you have any additional information about this?
So the question is using the PE right away through Garden Grove for
OC streetcar.
OC
extension.
streetcar?
Yeah.
It is a OCTA owned right of way. And as Kristen mentioned, we do have the OC Connect project, but that does not really preclude additional transit operations on there sometime in the future. Whether or not it's an extension of streetcar or you know, potentially some other technology is to be determined. So we'll need to do additional study on that. I know Los Angeles is working on a rail line that comes down close to the Orange County border. And so that may present an opportunity sometime down the line, but we're not quite there yet. But I would say that it is an opportunity that OCTA can look to take advantage of sometime in the future.
Okay, thanks to both of you. Let's do.
you.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
No?
I
Okay.
just said thank you.
Oh, yes, you're welcome. You're
Thank you.
welcome. Okay, we have another raised hand. It looks like it's Mary. Go ahead and speak, Mary. Let's see. She's still muted. We might be having a problem with the audio. Let's try again. Mary, can you hear us?
Việt Nam.
Okay.
Tôi đi xe đạp đó. Đi xe đạp rồi đi ra ngoài chợ. Có chỗ
So we're getting a lot of feedback, having a hard time hearing. I think that we might have to move on because I could not hear that question at all. I apologize, Mary. We couldn't hear you. If at all you could put it in the chat or in the Q&A, we'd be happy to try to answer that way.
Perhaps the interpreter was unable to understand, Marissa, and can note that in the chat for us.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have another raised hand by Aaron. Aaron, do you want to share your thoughts?
Yes. Hi. I wanted to ask about, we are seeing a lot of changes when it comes to our development patterns. And my question is, how are we considering our changes to our transportation plan in conjunction with the changes to our land use in order to make transit, transit, walking, biking, more viable options, given that we're building in all this density, but we're not seeing a big increase in the amount of transit service accompanying a lot of these projects that we're building. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. As you probably already know, the land use decisions usually remain with local jurisdictions, but we do coordinate with the cities on transit access and route planning. So that said, there are, we have efforts ongoing, such as the mobility hub strategy that that could promote and provide better synergy for between transit and land use planning. And there's some other, so in terms of mobility hubs, we completed a mobility hub strategy a few years back, and we're on to the next phase of that, where we're identifying potential locations for a pilot program. So that effort is ongoing. And then we have some other opportunities, such as working with the cities to redevelop some of OCTA owned properties that may include existing park and ride or existing transit stations, and redeveloping these into mixed use or transit oriented projects. So that's where OCTA's effort can kind of integrate with the city's land use planning initiatives and try to create a more transit oriented environment.
Perhaps I can give sort of a hypothetical, because I get that OCTA is, has land that could be developed, but we're also seeing a lot of mixed use land that is being developed without sort of any consultation with OCTA. And for example, right, developers are required to pay impact fees, right? They may have to build sidewalks or, expand the roadway, but that funding, doesn't necessarily go to transit to actually serve these places. So I would love to see, if there could be just better consultation with OCTA when we're building, a lot of these more high density developments.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and thank you for your feedback on that.
Okay, we're going to take questions for about 5 more minutes. And so, Kristen, I've got another one here for you. Actually, I just want to make a comment. I'm trying to acknowledge some comments here too. Bao mentioned more access on buses for seniors. So more access buses for seniors is what I was trying to say there. So I just wanted to mention that. Some of these are very specific, so I'm going to be skipping those ones. I want to get to a little bit more related to specific LRTP. Somebody wanted to know more about, like, what about light rail or heavy rail plans? Is there, are any of those in process, or is there, is that part of the LRTP, Kristen?
So I think I mentioned with regard to a earlier question that we do have a short-term to midterm, sorry, it's called the, well, it's called the rail, sorry, I'm blanking on I have mentioned it earlier.
It's
But we
the
do have a
coastal rail resiliency study. Is that the one you're
we have yeah, we have that one, and we also have a
Okay.
short-term
in the short term?
the Orange County Strategic Rail Plan. That one is ongoing. That looks at short-term to midterm strategy for rail. In terms of light rail, I think that we don't have any current efforts going on to study. We do have the OC streetcar that is, nearing completion, but not any effort that I'm aware of looking at additional light rail. Not that we're not planning for it, it's just that there hasn't been any concrete plans associated with light rail.
Okay, thank you. So next question is related to South County. What can be done to increase routes and frequencies of buses in South County? Currently, the routes are so scarce, it isn't surprising that few people can take it. It isn't convenient and doesn't serve enough neighborhoods.
Yeah, I think the recently completed transit vision had looked at the distributions of services countywide and trying to identify their rails in the south that meets the demand to become a priority corridor. I don't know. I don't remember the final recommendations in terms of route and what the proportion of it goes to South County, but it is something that we're always looking at, and we're always looking at supplementing our fixed route bus routes with OC access services type on-demand OC access type of services. So we're actively looking at that. I know some of these services were stopped since the COVID years, but we're always looking at reevaluating the conditions to see if we can bring back some of these services.
Okay, thank you. This is a question that I can answer. Anne asked, is there somewhere on the OCTA website where we can see all these different plans and how they overlap or differ? So there is a location on the website. I don't have a short URL for it, so what to give you, but if you go to octa.net and in the search button, if you just put planning studies, you will see all of our current studies. There's also a link there with all the past studies that we've done. There is definitely a page that shows all the different studies, and you can click on all those and learn about all the different things that we're doing right now. Okay, we'll do one last raised hand and probably one more written question, so then we can just close out. We do have a couple more slides before we close out. Oliver, go ahead and ask your question.
Hello. So Santa Ana, I went to a hearing in Santa Ana Pacific Park. So they were talking about how they had plans for a shared bike bus lane. And I was just wondering if any of your short-term plans are going to change because if they add the bus lanes that are being talked about.
I think you might be. Are you talking about the First Street multimodal project?
Yes, I'm talking about that. Yeah, they are. Yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah. No worries. So that is a project that OCTA is actively involved in. So I believe it's ongoing through this current phase. Planning phase is ongoing through the end of next year. It is a collaborative effort between the City of Santa Ana and OCTA. So whatever plan that they come up with, and that's available at the time of our project or our plan development, we'll try to incorporate as much. We'll try to assume what we can assume based on what they have come up with at that time point. But yes, it is a project that we are working on together.
Okay, and then Kristen, I have one last question. I think this is a good one to end with and kind of helps define again what the purpose of the LRTP is and what we're doing here. So is the LRTP to start projects in 2050 or setting their goals to be achieved by 2050? And then he said, very thankful for you to host this and would love to see these changes implemented before old age. So yes, if you can kind of explain how these projects and these goals are working.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the LRTP is completed every 4 years. So obviously our horizon year changes every time too. So this time it happens to be 2050, which is about 25 years beyond. We're not looking at this arbitrary fixed date to say, oh, by 2050, we'll have all these projects completed. We're looking at from a perspective from now to 2050, these are the projects that we would like to implement. And if we do have all these projects implemented by the year 2050, what would be the results and how would that result compare to the goals that we set for this plan? So to answer your question, it's a continuous effort up until the year 2050.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Okay, we have a couple more slides to close out if you can stay on. If not, we understand. Just wanted to mention our public engagement, which is what you're a part of tonight. But in September, we kicked off our first phase of public outreach to gather input from the general public, local cities, business and community leaders, and transportation professionals. We currently have a live online survey that can be accessed at octa.net/LRTP. In addition, we are offering survey participants a chance to win one of 4 $50 gift cards. As you see on the slide, we've been out at community events throughout the county, sharing information about the LRTP and our survey. Next slide, please. Here's a look at our key milestones. At this point, we're at the 3rd column in the schedule. We're in the middle of our first round of public outreach, as I just mentioned, and then the development of the draft plan will take place over the next several months. We will be coming out to you guys again in the summertime. So public review of the draft LRTP will take place next summer, and the final LRTP is expected to be completed in the fall of next year. Next slide, please. So we encourage everyone to stay connected. Please visit, again, octa.net/LRTP to learn more. You see Kristen's and my contact info. In case there are any follow-up questions or comments, you can contact us directly. There is a comment form as well on the webpage. Also wanted to mention this PowerPoint and the recorded presentation will be available online, so you can access all this information later. And then our final slide. That concludes our webinar. Just really appreciate all the questions and comments. Believe me, even if I wasn't able to say them out loud during this meeting, we are reading them and documenting everything that's been shared tonight. Just like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us tonight and provide the valuable feedback. Your input is part of the development process, and we appreciate your contributions. We hope to see you again next summer. Have a good night. Thank you so much.